Cast over at handcannononline.com, where things might be a little mopey below the clouds, but if you're a rainbow, everything's peachy. With me, as always, is a rock of the podcast, Fraser Bell for DeffHeadDice on all things social media. Welcome.
Evening, folks.
And super special WTC guest, Chris Dancocks. Welcome.
Hi, how you doing tonight? Oh, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, man. It's always fun to talk trolls.
Always.
When we're not being mopey.
Yes.
We're not. No.
Yeah.
What? If anybody's listened to this podcast here, we are anything but that. So.
We're all
right, Chris. So you've got,
perfect.
Indeed. So you've got WTC coming up soon. It's going to be quite the event, and we'll talk a little more about that later. And then we're going to go ahead and run on into the regular news. So if everybody has seen in the Trollbloods Facebook group, we've got our first 3D render of the Trollkin Brawler, our new reach heavy with 2 weapons, chain weapons. It looks awesome. So what are your first thoughts, Chris? I
freaking love this model. I was at Lock and Load this year, and when they had him up on the screen there, I was just blown away just to see the drawings of him, the conceptual drawings. And then when I saw the 3D render the other day on Facebook, oh my God, I'm in love. This model is gorgeous. I particularly like the follow-up new places where he has Miley Cyrus hanging on the chain. Yeah, it's probably, I think it needs to be added for sure.
God, it's almost worthy. It's almost worthy to put that in the opening music now. Just
there we go. Little set up for Danny do the Wrecking Ball song.
Indeed. We've done it before, but it's even more pertinent now. What I love about the image, though, is that they were merciful in their modeling, and they didn't give us a bouncer, type chain weapon there where it's impossible to get it to stay in place, for any length of time. Not only to store the stupid thing, but I agree with Chris. I think it is a gorgeous model. What I love about the model more than just like the normal sculpture, but his stature is much less droopy than a lot of the troll models. He's standing up high. He's powerful. He's not short and squat like a lot of the other model designs. Even some of our bigger trolls, some like Dozer and Smig, they're hunkered down. But he's going to be a very, very imposing looking model. I can't wait to see what the community sort of, comes up for mods with him there. Fraser, what do you think, buddy?
I'm to your point. The same thing. I'm glad they didn't make the chain weapons extended, because then he'd be taking up more space than a huge base model, and we have enough trouble jamming all those beasts together in a brick to begin with. The rendering looks gorgeous. I'm curious though, is this is going to be a multi-kit? If there's going to be another model that'll tie into it. From the looks of it, I don't think they will be able to. It looks pretty seamless, but one can always dream. So, but yeah, I can't wait to see it. Now, and I have to admit, I haven't been on the last bit of the CID. Did it go up a point? Because I thought it was pointing out at 16 points, but I think it's now.
No, he came out at 17 points and stayed there.
Oh, he was at 17. Okay, then I'm just hallucinating then, so never mind.
No, I mean, honestly,
I think when he was released at Lock and Load, I'm pretty sure he was supposed to come in at 16 points. So I do feel that's been an update, but I could be incorrect. I'm not sure.
Because I remember I was talking to Rich from Beer Machine, and he was saying, well, he is 16 points, but your Earthborn's going down a point, so really you're getting them both for 15 if you average everything out. So it works out well that way.
Yeah, that was the same thought I had. I was like, the battle group's all just gonna work itself out in the end. Earthborn down is a little more expensive, no big deal, right? But for what you're getting for 17 points, I think he's probably going to be worth it. I mean, just the chain weapon and then the additional power and strength that guy has base, like he's going to be a monster on his own. So that'll be nice to see.
Minimal support, and he's going to be really kind of crazy. Honestly, I even see things like maybe Madrak 2 starting to pop back up in the meta when you've got a non-Mulg reach heavy.
Yes.
Or a Mulg and a Brawler in the same list. Like, you start to get the army clearing goodness back that you used to have.
I could definitely see him finding a place in a Madrak 2 list, particularly like if you had a Band of Heroes list where normally you don't have access to a reach heavy right now.
No.
you know, all of a sudden that guy fills a very unique role in that list, and he would be very good at it. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I could see him popping up there.
Yeah, it could be really good. So more to Fraser's point, so the one thing that I hated about our like multi-kit originally was that it didn't fill a purpose, right? We only have dire trolls and we only have full blood trolls. So what was the point of having a multi-kit instead of just having models? Like everybody else, yeah, they have all of these other extra beasts, more beasts than trolls by far, and more types of beasts. So why not make each troll that we have more unique by having its own sculpt? And I would really, really not like to see this end up as a multi-kit. I want to just have more unique, interesting dire trolls that they can put out at this point. It just doesn't make sense to me to continue with the multi-kit thing.
I mean, the multi-kit
Yeah,
made
I mean,
sense
if they can do the multi-kit well, then it's... Sorry, go ahead, Fraser.
No, I'll say that. I mean, the multi-kit when they first came out, you also remember some of the character jacks character beasts came out that way because Rock wasn't a kit; he was an add-on to the multi-kit. So it was a way to get more value, to be able to produce more models without a huge amount of investment. So I can see where that was. But now I think to your point, you're right. I mean, we don't have a lot of variants. Why don't you just the kits? And I think they can produce the kits a lot easier now. And with Jacks, it makes sense. Multi-kit models make sense with Jacks because they'll almost look the same.
Yeah, they have
you want that flavor.
Yeah, they literally have a chassis with a Jack. Organic stuff is different.
Yeah, agreed. And hopefully, like I said, I'm hoping it is just the one. But I mean, you never know if they're trying to get additional value. But you're not seeing the multi-kits, at least in the beast side, unless they're very similar. You're not seeing that as much anymore.
Yeah, and I don't anticipate there being just because when they were announced, it was all lights that were coming in the Northkin releases, so we're not really going to see, another heavy launched off of that platform, I don't think. Furthermore, I mean, this is the first unique heavy that hasn't been a character that we've gotten, I mean, since the Bomber. Like, back in Evolution, that was, I mean,
did Blitzer
literally
come out
5
after
years.
the Bomber, or was it before?
The Blitzer was original. He's prime. Like, he was one of the original beasts. Yeah. The Bomber was the last unique non-character heavy that we got.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it is really crazy to think, and it's been so many years. And back to your point, though, Chris, about the, if they can do it well. I don't doubt that they could do it well, but it's more a matter of principle. But I'd like to hear your point anyway.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and I mean, Fraser, you already touched on it that like Jacks are very easy to do, but those like the new plastic multi-kit Jack kits are just a pleasure to build. Like those things are amazing. You look at the Grolar / Kodiak kit, I think it is, and that is just awesome, right? Like it's that new plastic and the pieces all fit together well, which I know for us is a huge issue in Trolls. And I mean, if we look over, I don't want to necessarily bring them up here, but if we look over at the fence at another game company, they do multi kits that are very, very nice and still have a lot of character in kind of either way that you kind of go with some kits, right? So it's not impossible to do. It's just, yeah, to your point, you do lose some individuality with it. But if you do it well, maybe you don't. I don't know. But yeah, I don't imagine you're going to see another kit with the brawler, or sorry, with the with the heavy kit there, because you didn't see another announcement. What I wouldn't be surprised about, however, is if we saw a multi kit for the ice troll.
Yeah.
I could see them very easily making like a winter troll / ice troll kind of combination, and that I think would be very cool.
Yeah, and since he just got changed, the Winter Troll just got changed too in the CID, didn't he? Right, he went up a rat.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. So that model's actually pretty legitimately good now, with just that little change. And did he lose a point of cost? I thought too. Like I thought he went down as well. I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember if he was one of the ones that lost a point of cost, but he definitely gained a point of rat, which is gonna make him fit into some. I mean, in the lists he's already good in, he's just going to be that much better, and he might even fit into a few other lists now. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm really like super behind the like moving our lights to the Mat 6, Rat 5 at the very minimum format. Like, it just makes sense. They were already moving in that direction where they want them to be relatively combat effective in all phases of the game and not just a buff bot and an animus bot, so that they have some value later, which I think is good, because I don't know, there was this big hearkening in Mark II where everybody was looking only for models that could do work, right? In addition to the job that they brought them for, animus or what have you. Now that, most of them actually do that. They've got their buff animus and they've got a fair amount of combat, power. Slag Troll, Pyre Troll, Winter Troll, almost all of them now are effective in their own vein. So I really like the way that we're going with this. And I think that, to your point, Chris, that it is actually quite a good idea to do a multi-kit in that respect. The Winter Troll was also a prime beast, and it's definitely showing its age at this point. I mean, you can look at it, almost all of those original models, just they are not large enough to even stand next to a Creel Warrior in some cases, like with the original Pyre Troll sculpt. It's like that big.
Yeah. You know what though? Like I love that old Blitzer model. I love the original Mauler. Like those models are so characterful.
Oh, yeah.
They're so gorgeous. The Winter Troll is just the worst though. Like they're kind of like opera singing, he's just super bad. And I bought a couple of them because I thought I was going to try and fit them into a list, and I even built them and I tried to paint them, and I'd consider myself a decent hobbyist, and even I couldn't get them to look anywhere near good.
In my jokey earlier days, I always threatened to make the hard rocking duo of the Slag Troll and the Winter Troll, one with a guitar and one with a keytar. The hard rocking duo, just for funsies, because I always thought the poses were so ridiculous.
Yeah, they are just, and like they're all kind of like that, like the Slag Troll. Even this, like the Storm Troll, kind of leveled out a little bit, but he's still got like that weird pose a little bit. Like they just seem to like that pose for some reason. But
it
makes them look buff. They can have flex muscles. That's probably why.
Yeah.
I do remember early on when I first heard that there was a Pyre Troll resculpt coming out, and I loved that model so much. And then when they finally came out with the new one, and I was like, oh, this is such a great step in the right direction. I fucking love this model. And then I ended up like Dallas, where it was right about the time when EE came out, and everybody's like, here, have a bunch of fucking Pyre Trolls. So I have a bunch of the new sculpt Pyre Trolls, and I've still just got one of the old mopey little guys that had the flame piece hanging out of his mouth.
He's kind of doing this, like
he's like, he looks so cranky. Like, why did you wake me up?
Yeah.
And so I
got into the Pyre Troll. Was the first Troll Blood model I painted, the new one, and it was I was about the time I got into the game was kind of when Warders released, and I had picked him up and brought him home, and I was so excited. I was like, this dude has fire on his hands. He's so awesome.
Yeah, I really like that, man. He's fucking great.
Yeah, my girlfriend got really annoyed with me saying like fire hands for like 2 days.
Not flaming fist, fire hands.
No.
Alrighty, since we're already on the topic of minis and cool shit, let's talk a moment about Mini Crate. Fraser, why don't you just go over for all of our viewers what Mini Crate actually is?
Privateer Press is now doing a monthly miniature subscription service where they're doing a alternate version of established models, limited to run. Basically, you order it. Once they're done, they destroy the mold, so they'll never make it again. You can do, I think they average about $16 a mini a US. I think they're like $20 US a mini for Canadians, including the shipping, which in all things considered, that's actually pretty good. So they haven't shown any troll models, and I don't know if they will, but they've done DeWolf, and mostly they're mercenary minions so far, and my knowledge of minions and mercenaries is pretty weak, but the DeWolf is the wolf in sheep's clothing, where it's a girl wearing a giant sheep outfit.
Yep.
There's one where they have the swamp.
It's the Swamp Horror.
The Swamp Horror. It's it looks like a mermaid where it's tentacles in the bottom and sexy lady on the top. And then they've done another one with a the Piper of Ode or Ord, who
Ord.
is it looks like a Scottish woman with a bagpipe. So they've got some interesting stuff.
They should have just named it Pinup Privateer. Something like that.
Pretty much. And the nice thing is, they are being equal opportunity. So it's both pinups and beefcake. So depending on which series of models you want, you have an option between the girl pinups or the boy beefcake. So you have options available to you.
I like it. What was the beefcake one that they displayed? I completely forgot.
There was I think it was like a Van Helsing. It was definitely like a Van Helsing theme. I can't remember the model that they chose for it though.
It was Harlan Versch or
Maybe.
the closest one I can think of to something like that. Yeah. I wish our viewers were actually in chat here paying attention to us, but they're probably just idle. Somebody tell us which one it was.
So I'm just kind of curious, because now that we have the ability with the new themes to take at least one mercenary minion solo and or one unit, is this something as troll players, do you think they're going to be interested in this to actually play? Because I mean, at this point, we have a little bit more options for what we can take in theme.
It's super
100%, yes. 100%.
Okay, Chris got their back right now.
And I don't know, did they change it? The last time I think I read it, it was a unit, a solo, and or a battle engine. So it's one of all three, but they may have changed it's just one of the three.
I thought it was one of, you could have one of each three type. So you could have a unit
so it's
and
not
a solo and a battle engine.
There's one model that will be returning to all of my troll lists, and that is likely going to be Linissa.
Yeah, Linissa is pretty freaking good.
No,
Legions. Yeah, Legion's everywhere right now, and Alt Naturally was actually the first one that I had considered. Yeah. The gun's just so good. The biggest problem is that he is so expensive. Oh my god.
6 points is a hefty sum.
I mean, he can rip half a light's health off, and that's not to be discounted for 6 points, but it's also one of the things where your opponent can just kill him if you miss position and you don't play him right. So there's some give and take there. Other considerations were for lists where you're lacking some utility, like Saxon Orc actually is probably an underplayed model right now. Like the ability to give out Pathfinder, and for how just good he is as a capable combat solo, pretty worth it. And I think he's still 4 points. So
yeah, I think so. And I mean, you'll see a lot of I'm sure you'll see a lot of like Rupert returning to lists and stuff like that. Like Rupert is just an amazing model.
Yeah.
And then there's so many of those solos that just play such a significant utility role that you don't have access to in either our faction or other factions. Like, I'm terrified to see the Vlad one stupid list with Rupert back in it. Like, our one issue is stealth.
Yeah, or several Signar lists, or I mean, how much of the identity of several factions were sort of defined by what mercenary choices they could choose back in Mark II. Mm-hmm. Like, that was pretty important to what they could actually take. I mean, I think you're obviously going to see in theme, you're going to see more things like Nis Hunters. Why would you not see Nis Hunters again? Like, in theme, great models, great unit, just very, very good at almost everything they do.
See, the one model unit I was thinking might be coming is Linus Wesselbaum and Idra. I can't pronounce the last name because they have wind barrier, so you can wind up having your caster not being able to be shot at as long as they're within 3 inches. I mean, that right there answers, at least lets you get some of your key pieces up the board and not have to worry about shooting.
Yeah, they were a good piece. And I remember for a while they used to always get taken with like a Hunter's Grim. Used to always kind of have them around, especially at the end of Mark II there when they were released. Mm-hmm. That was some good synergy, I guess. But yeah, like I said, there's so many options, and it'll be interesting to see what the evolution of that looks like once those are released back into the themes.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think anything that Privateer can do, since they're already moving into themes, are the thing. Anything they can do to diversify list selection is good for the game right now. Like, we hit a stagnation point, and I think they saw identified it pretty quickly, and they're moving in a direction now to make it less prevalent. And hopefully we can, make certain themes that are slightly unhealthy less unhealthy by using certain minion and mercenary options.
Yeah, I still think, I don't know if it'll solve that problem or if it'll just change that problem. Like you always hit a stagnation point, whether or not it's because you can select things or because you have to build a list a specific way. But the community is so large that you find out kind of the quote unquote best things are in a fairly short amount of time, and then people will just continue to play that. So I don't think it's going to change too much, but it'll be interesting to see what the unique choices are with the mercs and minions for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially out of the gate.
And Mini Crate just gives you a few more options of models to take. I know there's a couple guys around here that are picking it up just for hobby challenge for themselves, to give themselves something different to paint every month, knowing they've got something cool coming in.
Yeah, and I think that's where the core of what this is going to be for PP. Yeah, they're charging a little bit more for their model. They should. It's going to be a limited run kind of thing. But the hobbyists is who they're really, who they're really trying to hit here, and it's a good initiative. And honestly, the only complaint I could have about this is that, for fuck's sake, don't let it slow up your production of other models.
Yes,
like
they will not make any friends if they slow down other stuff.
Oh my god, and it's been a constant problem for them in the past. And while I like what they're doing, I'm like, come on, guys, just get your release schedule under control and then worry about this type of stuff,
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, the actual production of most of the Grimkin stuff seems to have been okay. The quality of it can come into question at some points, but the actual getting it out there seemed to have worked okay. The exception to that being Gremlin Swarms, but those were out before, so I'm just gonna take that off now.
Yeah. Oh god, you've put a Gremlin Swarm together, have you, Chris?
I have.
Literally the worst fucking model I've ever put together in my life.
Oh man, yeah, they were pretty awful. I wouldn't go as far as worse, but
worse. I'm not kidding. Okay, so the Gremlin Swarm comes in like 7 or 8 pieces, and I can't remember what, but there's nothing static about it, right? It's not like intuitive the way that they're posed. So trying to get it all into the amalgam of what this model is just a nightmare, logistically speaking. Like,
yeah, I like the people who have just gone their own way and been like, I'm gonna put the gremlins kind of wherever I want. Like, I think that's probably the way to go with that model. That way you don't have to stress yourself out about that.
Yeah, I mean, this is frustrating, but in a consistent way. The Gremlin Swarm is just like, what do I even do with this mess of, parts that they've given me?
Yeah, that's very fair.
Pretty silly. All right, do we have anything else as far as minis to talk about, since we're still sort of in the middle of hobby time?
Nope. I think
those Raiders. Come on, you got to talk about the Raiders.
Oh,
you got to talk about the 3D render of the brawler there. Those Raiders are
they're gorgeous,
stupidly good
why
looking.
Are they $85? I mean,
they're huge.
Because they're worth it. Those models are.
I mean,
if they look anything like the rendering, they'll be.
I know I'm going to buy them. Like, it's not a case of if; it's a matter of when. It's just I have to make sure that they're worth their points at 85. So what, that like 100 and change Canadian for a unit of 10 models? It just that hurts.
Yeah, my only complaint was the lack of unique sculpts within the unit. They sort of went with the 3 different grunt sculpts and then the 1 leader sculpt, and that was it. So it's better than it has ever been in the past, but it's still, one of those things that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. Make one more unique guy in the list. Have it be cool that way. But that's really my only complaint about them.
Okay. Well, let's take a break here, and then we'll come back with the hobby time and then games played.
Sounds good.
Hey,
I need another beer anyway.
I remembered to do the break thing. Hey, look at me.
I was going to do it if you didn't do it, actually, so that's fine. I'm going to go grab a beer while we're doing the thing there.
Okay.
And thank you to Bravo 3 for reminding me that there were only the 3 individual models in the unit there. Viewer interaction, it's great shit.
For the win.
It happens on occasion.
Oh, worse news.
Hmm.
Apparently, Belgium is 6 months to the expiry date of your passport. So my day tomorrow has now just been spoken for in getting a new passport at the last minute.
So, trying to do this in the U.S. is usually a very long and painful process.
Fortunately, in Canada, we can push a bag of gold across the table, and it can be done in 24 hours in the major.
Or Timbits, either one.
Yeah, it's not a pretty situation to find yourself in, but my girlfriend pointed out to me.
More people I know do the 24-hour one where they pay the extra money than do the regular one, because everyone realizes at the last minute, oh crap, I need my passport.
Yeah. Well, and I don't even understand, like, I don't understand the point of it being like 6 months from expiry and you not being able to go. There's obviously going to be some issue or some reason, but like if it expires on a date, why not just let you go until it expires? But
yeah, like any other normal licensing agency.
Yes.
Well, it's government, so
yeah, pretty much.
Were you grabbing something, Matt, or were you ready to go? There we go. Sometimes I have to do these polite reminders.
Yeah, you said you were leaving. What happened to that?
We're waiting for you to do something which you haven't started.
Is that a war wagon on the table behind you there?
It is.
Nice.
And the lit up Glacier King that doesn't have all of its pieces on it because I'm painting the arms. That's my hobby. My hobby time is I've been painting Dallas's Glacier King that I've had for almost a year.
Nice.
I'm a bad person.
Yeah, my war wagon is sitting a little less together than I anticipated he would be.
Well, looks like wagon's looking better. It's looking a little orky with all the red on it, but because red ones do go faster.
We had a little bit of a windstorm a little while back, and he was sitting on a table that was below my box fan over here in the corner, and I thought he got salvaged from the crash.
Uh-oh. But
that is apparently not the case.
Oh no.
So it looks like both of the buffalo and the metal piece there are a little disconnected, as it were.
Okay.
Alrighty, let's go ahead and move on to the next one.
So we'll go into hobby, which I've got like 2 seconds of something to talk about. Then we'll go into games played.
Alrighty. All right, so Fraser, it's been brought to our attention that you've been painting Dallas's Glacier King for quite some time now.
Yeah, well I've had it for quite some time. The painting actually is very small bits of time within that time period, if I'm to be totally honest. But yes, I've been I painted the bear skin loincloth. Actually, I used the technique from a friend of the cast, Andrew from Schnauzer Face Minis. He did a tutorial on how to paint what was the minion?
The bear.
The bear. So I used his technique to paint the bear, and it actually came out really good. I was really happy with it. So I think I've posted some pictures on the Facebook page. So I just have to finish off the skin pieces, and then I'm going to cut some custom foam for Dallas and hopefully get it to him, and maybe in time for Christmas. So I'll be really nice. I'll give him back something that's his for Christmas.
If there's one thing I have to say about Schnauzer Face Miniatures, it's F that guy. He has added at least like 3 hours to the painting process of every unit I've done, because it's like everything he does is so amazing and he makes it look so easy, and then I'm like, I can do oil washes, and then I ruin everything.
Oil washes are so nice though, and they do. Anyways, I won't. If you're having trouble with oil washes, I won't rave about how much I love oil washes. So.
They're so difficult.
Oh, I love them. That's the problem. They're just time intensive.
Yeah.
Oh yes, absolutely. But the amount of stuff I've learned from him and a few other guys that I've put, it looks good, but man, for me the worst part, because I use my airbrush for a lot of this stuff, the worst part is not the painting, it's the masking of the damn thing. Once you've painted something and then trying to mask, I spend more time covering up the stuff I don't want to paint over than the actual time of painting. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Are you using blue tack or are you using actual tape?
I actually use Silly Putty because blue tack has scorned me on a number of times where I've gotten big chunks of paint coming off from blue tack. So Silly Putty isn't quite is just as pliable, but not as tacky. So I find that comes off, and then I'll use painting tape over the other areas.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
My
Yeah.
Glacier King or my Mountain King looked like a giant glob of purpley green goo at one point when I was masking it so I could do the rock part.
Yeah, that makes sense. Alrighty, unless Chris, you've got any updates on what you're painting for WTC currently?
Like I mentioned in the pre-ramble, I'm just furiously painting Creel Warriors because I have a list with 2 units of them, and I had not started painting either unit like a month ago. So I don't suggest ever doing that, especially if you're a nice slow painter like myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and it doesn't hurt or doesn't help that Krill Warriors, for all their ills, are still just gorgeous models, and they have a huge amount of complexity to the model. Not just the tartan, not just the tartan, but all the extra bits. They all have kegs and hams and shit that's hanging off of them, and trying to get all those details done is definitely time consuming.
Yeah, they're beautiful, beautiful miniatures to see on the table when they definitely take a lot of effort to get there.
Yep, having painted a unit of the Highwaymen, which use the same bodies, yeah, they're gorgeous. Like the detail in it's really nice.
Indeed. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to games played. I had a little hiccup in my work schedule the last couple of weeks, so I managed to not play any games. But Fraser, I've heard that you have something to talk about here.
Yeah, I went to the WTC Team Canada fundraiser in Guelph, Ontario, the last weekend in August. It was a 5-man team tournament, so I pulled most of the guys who were on our OTC team. So we had Phil, who used to be on 4 New Gamers, Mike O'Brien, who is a former Masters winner from Ireland, who's moved to the area we're in. We had Rob and Robert, who have both appeared, I think, on 4 New Gamers as well. So basically, we threw together a team. And I brought my Gristle 2 list that I blatantly stole from James White, and then a Calandra list because I couldn't bring Doomy 2 because we had another troll player that was bringing Doomy 3. I couldn't bring my Doomy 3 list because someone else was bringing it, so I brought a Calandra list. I think I talked about both these the last time, but at a super high level, the Gristle list is Gristle, Bomber, Storm Troll, Bouncer, Fell Collar, which is free, Min Stone with the Elder, 2 Min Champs, 2 Min Warders, Fenblade with the UA, which was free, and Calandra was, as I'm waiting for Warren to open, Calandra was my Beast Brick, so it was Glacier King, 2 Earthborns, Mauler, Axer, 2 free Shaman, and a Whelp, then a Max Stone with the Elder. So my thought was I could go into Ghost Fleet if I had to, but we had a couple good counters with our list. We had a Ret, Scorn, 2 Trolls, and Crix. So we threw the Crix guy under the bus on a regular basis, and he still kept winning games. So, but my first round was into Team Salt. This is the guys that came up from Flint, Michigan. And they actually, spoilers, they actually won the tournament overall. So they showed up last and then won the tournament. So I played into Merlin, who was playing Mercenaries. So he had Conflicts Siphon for operating theater. And then he also had Magnus 2, the Warlock, under Kingsmaker. He dropped Magnus 2. Now, having never played in Magnus 2, I didn't know what his feat was, so I didn't realize he gets to pick 2 sides, and then you can't move forward on those 2 sides, which is a bit of a surprise. So I dropped Gristle 2 because I figured with being Band of Heroes, if he dropped the Cephalix into me, I would have a good way to remove any of his tough. So I thought I could probably win that battle. But he dropped Magnus, so it was I wind up losing on scenario. He didn't really get to kill much of my stuff. I was kind of surprised, but I just because of his feet, I played aggressively, moved up, but wasn't fast enough to be able to contest the zones. And it was the scenario that had the 2 circles and then the 2 rectangulars in the middle, and then the objectives. I forget the name of it now. I had them written down before. So, but anyway, so it was a good game. It just that feat I wasn't ready for, and I didn't play nearly aggressive enough. So that was sort of a theme for the. Actually, no, I'm getting better playing scenario, I have to admit. So round 2 was against the where is it? I don't have the team name. It was a local team, but it had David Beauchamp, who's the captain of one of the WTC Team Canada's teams, and he was bringing his WTC lists, which is Vlad 1 and it looks like Butcher 1, I think was 1, but he dropped Vlad 1. Now apparently, Butcher 3 was his other list. So apparently he has played this list, this Vlad 1 list, which was 3 Marauders, a Juggernaut, a Destroyer, Winterguard Rifle, Min times 3, with I can't read his writing. Hang on. With
3 rockets in each unit.
Yeah, and then he had the mechanics, mortar for free, field gun for free, and he had the Winter Guard theme. So basically, he's played this list apparently 100 times, so he knows this list forwards and backwards. And Vlad 1 was not much fun. So I dropped Calandra because I wanted to see, well, maybe Starcross could counter the what's the Kador spell where you get to roll the extra die and drop the lowest.
Signs Importance.
Thank you, Signs Importance. So it was a Starcross versus Signs Importance, which pretty much averages itself out. So this was he left a couple things where if I was a novice player, I would have thought he did it by mistake, but there's a few things he was trying to goad me into because he's got sack pawn on everything. So anything I do, he brought Vlad up really close. I could have tried throwing something and trying to do some stuff, but because he had sack pawn, nothing would ever actually hurt him. So it was pretty grindy. He beat me on scenario. At this point, the list I brought, I don't think based on talking to him afterwards, he says neither of the lists really had much play into Vlad 1. I don't know if we have I don't know if we have enough time tonight, but maybe in the future that's one of those lists we can look at and see how Vlad plays into how we can play into Vlad with our list. So it was a great game though, because David's a great person to play against, and I learned a lot of stuff as well, which is always good. So that was a good game. And then the third game, I don't remember, but I lost that one as well. So I went 0-3. So I was the anchor of the team. I was bringing us down. I don't think we quite came in last, which is always nice. But I think we won 1 round. But they ended after 3 because they had a definite winner at that point. But I didn't feel bad because Bubba Dalton's team, I think, only won 1 out of their 3 games too. So as long as and we didn't have to play Bubba. That was the oddest thing, because guaranteed first round of almost every team tournament I've ever gone to, I've played Bubba's team, so we didn't play him this time. But it was fun. I've come to the conclusion that I need to play more games, because I play about 1 or 2 games a month, and that there's no way to get better at this game if you're only playing that infrequently. So I'm trying to get into more tournaments and trying to get to more weekly games just so I can actually play. But I think the challenge for me right now is trying to figure out a list I want to play, knowing with the upcoming rules coming out. So I want to play with the new Mulg. I want to play with the new Room Bearer. I want to play with the revised Grim 1 and Borka 2. But it's just that waiting.
Yeah, but the whole Magnus thing, like getting your reps in solves that issue, right? I mean, the more you play, the more you discover what other things in the game do. And I always tell the kind of the newer guys in the game, when they eventually have that experience where, like, oh, I moved out of my deployment zone and somebody killed me. And you're like, well, at least you know it's never going to happen again.
Yeah.
Like, you know what that thing does now, right?
Yes, exactly.
So, like, get the more experiences like that you can have, the more well-rounded your game will be moving forward. So
yeah, and I agreed. And it's just, I know I was looking because I was checking my the games I've entered in the battle reporter, and I'm realizing my win ratio is less than stellar. I think it's right now, it's about, with these games, I think it's about 20% this year I've won. So I'm not losing every game, but
well, let's take that into context a little, though, Fraser. Like, most of your games, especially the losing ones, are not like casual games. You're like, I'm gonna go to the tournament and get my teeth kicked in for 3 rounds, and then report this on the fucking battle recorder.
And
Play
then
zero practice games and just go right into the Sharks.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, like we had the tournament at TGEX, the Tabletop Gaming Expo. I played David Pochamp there as well, and again, the guy is good. He's the captain of one of the Team Canada WTC's team. He knows this game, so I've lost to him twice. But it's the whole fact that you learn something from it, which is the important part. So, but yeah, I mean the casual games I do better at, but it's I wouldn't mind getting a few more wins under my belt. I just sort of add a little bit of positive reinforcement to myself. But I'll get there. I know.
Yeah, I mean, reps are where it's at. I mean, you got to play games. Unfortunately, those of us who have families like you and me, tend to have our game time limited. But to be perfectly honest, like if I as a competitive player, when I was the most competitive, I probably only played 2 games a week and then tournaments every weekend that I possibly could to get to the level that I played when I played really well. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's probably that's not an unrealistic expectation for a lot of people. Like, you go in for your regular game night, go in a little early, get 2 games, and then play a tournament in the weekend. It's not, or every other weekend. That seems like it's about it. Now, this is interesting because it just kind of popped into my head, though. Chris, now I know you guys, as part of your WTC preparation, probably have a little bit of a regimen. I don't want you to expose a lot of it, but can you give us a little bit of an insight, sort of like how you guys prep in that way?
You mean like in terms of actually getting out and playing the game and what we're doing to get our reps in?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have like a set number or anything of games that we have to play, but and I'll be forthcoming and say that our team is probably a little bit more relaxed than maybe the other Canadian teams, but we're doing kind of the same sorts of things they are. We're playing games, we're making sure that we're talking about those games with the team, we're recording them so that we can see kind of what our statistics are, and we're making sure that if we're finding problems in our lists or we're finding areas where we're excelling, we're talking about those with the team so that when it comes to the tournament, we can avoid or try to get into matches that match the experiences that we've actually had, not just thought about. So I know that from the past, what I've heard is there's a lot of other teams that will set like a number of games that you have to play, basically homework, like go out and play these games or go out and, get this many reps in. And like I said, we're a little bit more casual in that as long as we're all playing games, which I can tell you that I think everyone is to their full ability. No one's cracking the whip on us. I think our captain is, already in Europe on vacation, so he's given up on the practice.
So you've definitely got the muscle memory part of the game down, is what I'm hearing, and now you're working on the polished stage of your guys' plan.
Exactly, and I mean, a lot of us have been playing our lists for a little while now. Like I went to Lock and Load with 2 lists that I thought I was going to be bringing to WTC. Slightly altered, but still, like the Doomy 3 list I played at Lock and Load and wasn't super comfortable with it, but it was I learned things about it that I liked and disliked, and adjusted from there. But like my Gunbjorn list that I was playing and very happy with, I actually dropped from my pairing for WTC because there was some significant weaknesses that I found through getting reps in that I didn't think I could overcome.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. But back to Fraser, though, I think it just does come down to, well, I think that operationally you understand the game and its mechanics, and you can you can see and predict like a normal player. But until you've got the muscle memory, like gamut of rules. You understand all of the things that you could potentially face, and it's more about time than it is about ability. So I think that you're probably progressing just fine. You just keep punishing yourself unnecessarily.
Well, I know that one of the pieces of advice that I've heard recently came from Tim Banky, and he shared it because someone shared it with him, is you always have to think about 3 turns ahead. Like, never just think about what you're doing turn 1 and turn 2. You think about where you need to be as far ahead as you can. So I'm beginning to think about that a little bit more. Granted, it's killing my clock when I'm trying to think about all the different possibilities, but it's just little things like that where you just pick up. But I mean, playing a number of lists with the Gristle 2, having the Warders and the Champs, knowing the placement where you need to put them to get their benefits, and just making sure, just thinking those pieces through. So again, I think it's just a case of I'll get there in the end. I just have to make sure I can get enough time to get the games in, and that isn't always the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, man, everybody has a life. Sucks sometimes.
Absolutely.
We've managed to run down our clock pretty hard here. So let's go ahead and take a very short break, and we'll move into the last section here, only about 10 minutes long, and we will talk about the current state of the game coming into the new CID releases.
Yay, break. Now we can put a commercial in here. So anyone who wants to put a commercial in our show, let us know.
Of course. So we basically covered the minions talk earlier. If we have to, we can put that into the end.
And we can throw the state of the game and maybe just, or if we want to give Chris a chance to talk about his lists. I don't know if you want to do that, or you want to come back after the WTC and we can talk about either one. I mean, part of it I think is, it just seems like we've been a little. There's been a little bit more negativity, or people just aren't playing the game or playing the trolls. So I'm flexible if we want to switch gears and.
Well, and I'm actually I had a thought, and that was that you were stating, Chris, that when you went on the Muse and Minis podcast, everything seemed sort of mopey. I would sort of like to, maybe if you could do. We could do like a point counterpoint, right? So there were a few things that maybe they said that we didn't do. The faction itself doesn't do well yet, and then maybe we could sort of counterpoint it, or bring thoughts on what could be changed to make it less of an issue, unless it's too similar to what you already spoke about over there.
No, it's not. That's not that similar to what we spoke about over there. But most of what we talked about was just kind of, where we thought trolls were in general, and maybe it was almost my fault in that I think I was the only person who commented on their own faction who said that they were in the bottom half of the game, which I'm perfectly willing to say, but that doesn't mean that we're in a bad spot. Like I think, yeah, we're not great, and we're not a power army for sure. We're not Signar, but the scale between Signar and us isn't that far.
And part of it too is, and not that we should hold this just because it's mine and I like it and I use it all the time. But if you look at the numbers that are coming into the battle reporter, both combination of tournament games, because we're getting some stuff from Tiebreaker and things like that, and independent games, the percentage, the win-loss percentage between number 1 and number 13 isn't huge. It's less than 10%. So even though a faction isn't doing that well, the win percentage that they're doing, you're seeing there isn't a huge swing between the top and the bottom.
Yeah.
So
for instance, I live in a fairly large meta, but I have a pretty good win rate overall, even against some of the better players in the Seattle meta. So I think I'm with Chris. I could confidently say that we are 6 or 7 in the power curve, but not a bad faction by any stretch of the imagination. We're not Mark II trolls where we had 2 OP as shit theme lists, and you could still take other lists that could compete in a meta, that was very diverse. We were definitely not in as good a place as we were at the end of Mark II. So.
No, and we're definitely not in as good of a place as we were at the beginning of Mark III either, right? We don't have the Madrak 2s of the world kind of propping up the faction and making us.
Yeah, and I don't even know that he held the faction up as much as you. I know that the intention of it wasn't to say that he was the shining light or anything like that, but He was good. He was a little too good. He wasn't too good to be nerfed as bad as he was, in my opinion, like sort of after the fact, since we're already basically just moving into this section.
The sections began. You started the rant.
Fluid for the first time doing the new way.
But what I think it did is uncovered the underlying problem with trolls right now. I think is that, and it's happened before. We had Madrak, who was way up here, right? And then we only have like one or two that are right here, and then the rest of them meet in the middle. And they're almost all about as powerful as one another. But because some of them don't run the theme list as well as others, the ones that do drift to the top. And so you only see 4 or 5 warlocks that are represented because of the way theme lists work and because of the models available to them in the theme lists.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I don't think it's any different from any other faction, right? Like, you look at a Banes or a Ghost Fleet, like, you have 1 or 2 or maybe 3 really good casters that operate in both of those. So those are the ones that you see in that faction, right? Where, you know, before it could be a mixed bag.
Maybe we should use another faction that's less hampered by its warlocks, I guess. Like Condor, for instance. So Jaws of the Wolf can take a breathtakingly amazing set of models that can be utilized by, God, more than 3/4 of the faction. There's a striking difference between things in Khador and things in Trolls. And then at the same time, in Signar, there are a limited number of warcasters that you can use in their theme lists, but they are so far above the bar for their power level in that respect that they stand above and you don't see any of the others. Like, there's just a very weird disparity in power levels between factions, between Warlock and Warcaster, and then obviously the theme list. And Trolls are at a weird place where they're suffering more from a lack of diversity than they are from general power level across the board, I feel.
Yeah, and to be fair, to go back to those 2 factions like Signar and Khador, like you mentioned, they kind of suffer from 2. I say suffer. It's not really a suffering. Like, I think Khador casters are good, but they are held up more so by the quality of the models that they have available to them in the army. Like, rockets are amazing, right? Their jacks are incredible, right? You could take any caster in that list because what is behind them supports them so well. Not to say the caster is not also awesome, but their supporting cast is really good. And Signar is kind of the opposite to that, especially with the Stormlance nerf coming. Signar stuff is very good, but their casters are what kind of takes it to 11. So you really see those top tier casters really push all of that stuff up, like Haley 2s and God, new Cray is just amazing. He scares me. But like, Trolls are in this weird spot where, like, our stuff is good. Like, we have good casters and we have some good options available to us in the army, but like, neither of them really push the other one up to like 11, right? Like, they do well and there's lots of synergies available to them, but neither can really rely upon the other one completely like you can in these other lists.
And I think some of that stems from the lack of diversity in the heavies that we have available to us. Like, because we have the fewest options for what we can take just in generic heavies, that really limits what you can take in any given theme list at any given time. You know, fewest number of ranged heavies, fewest number of melee heavies. Like, we don't have a lot of options, and so list building gets even more stagnant in that respect. And when you rely, as they have, on characters to make troll list building and troll heavies diverse, then you're limiting yourself even more when they put the character restrictions so heavily into into the new theme lists.
Yeah, and I mean, seeing our theme lists too, like, especially when you look at a band of heroes or something like that, like, you can definitely see there is I hate to use the word power creep, with our themes being released kind of early out the door, and the more recent ones, right? Like I think the Sons of the Tempest, like the first thing to go in the jacks that they could choose in CID was the restriction for ranged jacks only, right? Like that's one of the changes already. And I mean, how many of the other themes out there have the restrictions like a Band of Heroes does on the free points? I don't think there's that many. Like most of them are, oh, you took infantry, or oh, you took units, so here's your free models, right? There's definitely been a change as things have progressed, and Trolls just came out first, unfortunately. Oh, something's rustling.
Was that me? It was probably me typing.
Oh, maybe.
Professionalism at its finest.
I exist in the same room as my family, so sometimes loud things happen.
Yeah, true. No, and I agree. I think being the first out of the gate, they never want to give you. They always want to give you something better than what you saw before. So that's where I'm hoping when we see this next set of themes come out, that we may see something that goes above and beyond what Band of Heroes and what Power of Dunya have done. There's actually a question in the theme or in the chat from Stuart III asking if the release of the Creel Company has given Trolls better options. But from my point, when I've looked at, I've had a I've find it challenging building that list. So even though it's a later list, it doesn't seem to, or later theme, it hasn't seemed to give us a lot of it. That seems to be there. PP seems to be removing that power creep option from there. Because it's a theme, but it's not giving. I don't think it's giving us a whole bunch of new options we didn't have.
No, and the power creep certainly it's not necessarily the rule. It's kind of just how things progress. Like Power of Dunya is still amazing, and it was one of the first ones out of the gate, right? And like some of the other lists are, like Kingmaker was the first theme list, right? And it is awesome, but it just depends on how you fall and how that creep continues. But sorry, you were gonna say, Matt?
I think that to a degree there's also, so themes and Trolls are a little different, I feel, than themes in other lists or in other factions. Like Trolls have a clear army building theme rather than a like the thematic theme, right? Because a Creel Company right away stands out to me as warriors, not as dudes with guns, you know? So there's a really big disconnect there from what the intention of the list design or the theme is and what the actual theme comes out as. Furthermore, like Privateer put a whole lot of models that were created at a time and not modified to the point where, you know, they're not great. Like, let's just take Scattergunners as an option, as something you can take in Creel Company. They're good when mixed with other things that are good in a normal list because of the rules they have, clear and, you know, things like that, where they can shoot their own dudes. But when you don't have an option to build a diverse list around Creel Warriors, they start to be a lot less good overall. And that is what you're sort of seeing with Creel Company, where, yeah, our ranged beasts are good, but they're pretty good at shooting things, and they're not very good in melee. And then you remove the ability to make them good in melee by limiting the beast selection. That limits the type of list that you can competitively build dramatically. And you don't quite see that sort of short-sighted view in quite so many theme lists as you have in Trolls, in my opinion. And it's a very weird place to be.
The one thing I specifically love about Creel Company is the access to Boom Howler. I think that was very neat, and it's odd that the Scattergunners are okay, but there's nothing in the list other than that has like that kind of jam roll to it. So I've been building a couple lists, and Boom Howler just keeps kind of finding his way into them when I'm looking at Creel Company. So after WTC, I'm excited to try a couple Boom Howler lists out.
And honestly, I'm with you there. Boom Howler, okay, so Troll lists sort of need to have like some chunks to them that are similar across the board. And if you literally have nothing that screens your shooting units from your normal units, you're going to have a bad time.
Yep.
And Boom Howler perhaps does that better than a lot of options. So it's good in that respect, but it still reeks a little to me of anti-synergy in a way. Most specifically in the battle group section. Like, there's just not... I mean, outside of the Mountain King, you're really losing so many options for what you could potentially take that will hit hard, serve its ranged purpose, and not just clog your battle group with one giant base and then nothing else. You know, it's a very difficult choice to make.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think most Creel company lists, the first model you put into it is the Mountain King, because you just can't really rely on doing anything without it.
Well,
yeah,
and it's the only theme you can bring that it lets you bring the War Wagon, at least for now. So that's one of the plus on the plus column for this theme is the War Wagon you can be included.
And not to sound particularly mopey, I don't think it's bad, but there's a lot of optimism to be had for the Northkin theme on the horizon. Lots of interesting models, lots of extra stuff included, lots of really good options for us going forward, including things like the Hooch Holler. Looking forward to that one, baby. So, at any rate, we've prattled on for a little longer than intended here. We got some pretty good stuff out of this episode. Lots of insights and more ramble than normal, I feel. So much so that we literally just didn't even bother transitioning into this particular section.
Hey, our best episodes are the ones where we ramble, so...
Yeah, exactly.
It's likely my fault too. Once I get going, I can't stop. I apologize.
Oh, I think we're all the same way there.
We're
excitable. Absolutely. All right, gentlemen. It has been a good episode of the Scrumcast, but on that bombshell, we're going to go ahead and sign off.